Good evening, everybody. I hope you had some good snacks and tea, coffee. So I really glad to share that Srimati Uma Mahadevan Madam is here. So I'm going to tell you, she was she was ill and she said she can't come. I said many people are waiting, and she said, "Okay, I'll come for 5 minutes." Thank you, ma'am. Uh, she's a senior administrative service office, and she's currently serving as development commissioner and additional chief secretary of government of Karnataka. As a public servant, she has served various capacities and roles at both union as well as state level, including departments of women and child development, agriculture, education, health, and family welfare. Uh, in her previous role as additional chief secretary of rural development and Panchayati Raj government of Karnataka, she works at the rural administrative levels such as Gram Panchayats, Taluk Panchayats, Zilla Panchayats. She's a queen on working on development issue and has worked with women entrepreneurship, child libraries, and Anganwadi workers in line with her strong perspective for using decentralized approach to achieve development goal. This is her official bio I'm reading, but I want to share that she has been an amazing leader in RDPR. That's how we worked with her, and she's really promoting women in the women in Gram Panchayats, that is village level women, to get into solid waste management. And she's the first person who has got thousands of women to drive vehicle and create entrepreneurship through solid waste management. In addition to that, she has always been encouraging us to do more and more work and open arm for citizen engagement in her department. So personally, I'm very honored that Madam has come. And ma'am, we have nearly 16 countries represented here. And we have people online also. 1,600 people are watching online, and almost 360 hours of watching has happened since yesterday online. And that is a big thing. So we have really talked a lot of organic waste management and decentralized waste management and inclusion of workers and women in the whole sector. And since you have done so much of inclusion in this, we would like you to address the group and talk about how Karnataka government has taken this solid waste management in rural area very seriously. You can sit there and speak also.
Thank you so much, Nalini ji, and it's a delight. Thank you, Froy. And it's a delight and an honor to be here with all of you. I was looking forward to this. Unfortunately, I've had a very hectic 2 weeks of travel and work. I'm also, along with Development Commissioner, I'm also still holding Panchayat Raj and also still holding skill development, which is why it's like 3 roles, kind of driving me a bit, quite heavy. But I'm glad I was able to come. I have been looking forward to having this discussion. Karnataka has been working in the area of solid waste management in rural areas. Of course, urban areas also, there are initiatives, as you're all well aware. But in rural Karnataka, which is my remit, because we have nearly 6,000 village local bodies elected by the people, and these are given the responsibility of solid waste management in their jurisdictions. So these 6,000 village local bodies have around 95,000 local elected representatives, 50% of whom are women. And of course, it's also representative in terms of marginalized groups and different categories, SC, ST, OBCs, and so on. We also have several trans persons who have identified as trans, who are also members of the Gram Panchayats. So we have been, in the last few years, we have been grappling with this whole idea of how we should manage solid waste in rural areas. And of course, the usual uh, first steps is that we first there's a program designed, and then it's kind of top down, and we have a scheme where under the Swachh Bharat Gramin we have these buildings coming up, the segregation sheds. Land is identified, segregation sheds are built, then a waste collection vehicle is bought, and then we start thinking about how we're going to run these things. When I saw how these were happening, especially just in the middle of COVID, I looked at what was happening, and I found that what was actually happening in the first year was that the poorest women, uh, the elderly women, women with disabilities, women from different marginalized groups, were forced to do the dirty work of segregating mixed waste, which was by default because they didn't have any option. There's always somebody who's poor enough to have to do the work, the degrading work uh, that we kind of give to them because our processes are not very solid. So we immediately realized, I discussed with my team, and we said that this is not okay, because neither is it okay in terms of dignity and self-respect for the poorest people to have to do this degrading work, nor is it even okay sustainably if people are not going to segregate their waste even at the source. How does it even work? I mean, where is the partnership and where is the ownership? So we said, instead of the Gram Panchayat, so the Gram Panchayat is this elected local body. So instead of the Gram Panchayat just giving this work to people who have no other option, we said that the Gram Panchayat will sign an MOU, an agreement with the local women's groups. The women locally, self-help groups, they are federated into a larger group at the Gram Panchayat level. So we said the Gram Panchayat, the village Panchayat will sign an agreement. The Women's Federation will identify those women from among their federation who are interested and willing to do this work. Those women who are selected will thereafter be trained, and we took up the training in two of our institutions across the state. We've got training locations. We will also do this not only in terms of the segregation, but also end to end. So, behavior change communication, user fee collection, collection of the waste, secondary segregation, segregation happening in the this thing, disposal of the waste, which is segregated. By selling it and getting revenues for the panchayat. All this will be managed by women in a micro enterprise model. But most importantly, even the work of driving the vehicles and going house to house to collect the waste will be done by women. And the women will be trained not to accept mixed waste. So this was a big thing. And it was a big sea change, and it was a policy decision. And many of our colleagues in the team itself felt that this is never going to happen. They said it was utopian. They said, madam, you will not find rural women coming forward to drive. So 3 years ago, we had 0 women driving the waste collection vehicles. Today, we have, I'm happy to say, 3,400 women driving. They have all come forward on their own, voluntarily, raise their hands and come forward to attend 30-day residential workshops, residential training workshops as drivers, got the driving licenses. You'll be surprised, or maybe not so surprised. The patriarchal thing is so strong that even after getting their driving licenses, they were not getting the keys to the vehicle. So then we did another push. People were so reluctant. What will happen? How will these women drive? The roads are not safe, all kinds of reasons, right? And but the women have just come forward. Additionally, we have more than 12,000 trained women who are working on the user fee collection, on the behavior change communication, on the waste segregation, working in the units. And so we have more than 15,400 what I call green livelihoods, which have been created as a result of this. This is basically, it's like this glass is, you can go to the panchayat and say this glass is half empty. There is still waste, it's still being mixed, people are still, but, or you can say, there are some women who are working on this. But this glass, I can tell you, was not on the table when we started. 3 years ago, there was no glass on the table. They were all doing it as, as a kind of this thing. So that's the first big success. And in this I have to say that, along with our governmental training institutes, MGIRED and SIRD, we have had amazing support from Hasiru, Nalini, and all her entire team. We've had amazing support from NGOs like Sahas. We have had Stone Soup working with us. We have had Velu Srinivasan coming from Tamil Nadu and conducting trainings. We had a 1-day training, morning to evening, where none of us moved, starting with 2 additional chief secretaries, myself and my colleague. We had 31 young IS officers who are from the districts. We were, I think, about 50 IS officers, as well as all our teams. We were a group of some 200 or so. And everybody went through that entire training which Velushan Vasan did, showed us videos, showed us this thing. Even the chief secretary attended that program. And after that, we did a residential 15-day training for people within the system, because we realized that this is not something that can be done only by those outside. We wanted hearts and minds to change and to understand the importance of building sustainability, building inclusion, building gender into this. You can't do this without building gender into it. You can't do this without building inclusion into it. You can't just have one outcome and say, we want clean villages, and imagine that you can have clean villages or clean rural areas without having women be equal partners, or without having people with disabilities be equal partners, or people who are elderly be equal partners in this whole thing. So this is something, or the local elected representatives, they also need to understand. So this is something that we did. It's a very long journey, but I'm happy to say that we have reached a point. It's nowhere near the tipping point, but certainly we've reached a point where panchayats are doing this. We have young fellows. We've identified and selected some development fellows. In North Karnataka, there are cases of lighthouse panchayats where this is happening successfully. It's happening sustainably. And the empowerment for women has been outstanding. Whenever I ask, when we call our Swachh Vahini drivers and we have meetings, every year for Women's Day, March 8th, we actually call our Swachh Vahini drivers, the women who drive, and we ask them. For the last 3 years, we've been able to call 2 from every district. So we've been able to fill a room like this in the Panchayat Raj Commissionerate, and we actually cut a cake with them. And last year and the year before, we had photo cakes with their pictures, 30 women in a truck, and that was the cake that we cut. But the more important thing is it has brought change in the lives of these women. And when I ask them what is the biggest change, they actually are not talking about the livelihoods. They're not talking about the income that they're able to generate for themselves. They say, we are now able to go to the panchayat. We are now able to go to our local government. We now understand what participation means in the panchayat. So this is the bigger picture. It's not only about waste management. It's about living in a sustainable way and being a part, feeling that you're participating in your local governance. And waste management is a very, very critical part of local governance. Additionally, what do they say? They say there was one woman in Kolar. She's the president of a women's federation. You were there that day. And she said, for 18 years after I got married, I did not step into the panchayat. I never thought that the panchayat is basically a local government. For those of you who are not from India, it's the local government, it's the local council, elected council. So she said, I did not step into the panchayat. I never thought that that was women's work. And after doing this, I have taken it up. Now I interact with them almost daily on WhatsApp and on phone, and I have absolutely no fear. So this is a huge feeling. So what they're actually saying, not in so many words, is that it's a huge feeling of empowerment. Because what does the panchayat symbolize? The panchayat symbolizes power. It symbolizes the local seat of power. So that's something. The second thing that they tell me is, there was a woman from Ramnagar. I don't know if you were there that time. She's a driver. So she used to be working in a garment factory and she used to be getting a lot less. But then when the panchayat said that we're looking for women to come forward and learn driving, she said, let me go and learn. Her family said, why do you want to go and learn how to drive a waste collection vehicle? It's a small mini truck. So she said, no, I'll just learn, I'll attend, I'll learn, I'll get my driving license, and then I'll quit after a month. That was 2 years ago. She's still out there and she's still driving, and she's loving the driving. She says, I'm so glad that I started. Another woman in Bagalkot told me that for the first week, people used to say, why are you driving a waste collection vehicle? After the first week, they would say, look, she's out there driving her vehicle. So they've lost the idea of waste. She's driving a vehicle. So this visible symbol of empowerment. There are some of the women who have told me that after my children and my family, my vehicle is my most treasured thing, which I thought was really something very special. So they feel the sense of empowerment. Why I wanted to share this is that we can, with one element, so waste management is one part of creating a sustainable and green future for ourselves. But uh, with one element, we can achieve many outcomes, many objectives. That we are including people. So I keep telling our teams that even when you're selecting women or selecting people to do the segregation in the segregation units, you don't need to have, this is not sole income. They're not working from 9 to 5. You don't need to have people working from 9 to 5, and you don't need to count the time. You can ask the women. They may be elderly, they may have care burdens, they may have to look after chronically ill people at home. They can come and do that segregation, 2 hours work. Even if 2 hours work is done in 4 hours, it's still okay. You can still pay them, you can still share, because and you're not paying them, they are sharing the revenues generated. So this allows us, in fact, people with disabilities also, who have severe disabilities, can do the segregation and they can get livelihoods. This allows us to bring inclusive livelihoods into waste management, which is again a part of, I think, inclusion and sustainability. The other thing is, we are now trying to create a consciousness about fuel, as well as about the cost of fuel, as well as emissions. One district where I visited, I think I told you once, that they were actually, the women were collecting the waste, they were putting it in the unit, and then the MRF would come and collect it every day. I said, this is just not going to happen. Uh, Unsegregated waste would go to the MRF, and they would do the segregation there. So then my colleague said, but madam, there are 8 women there standing and doing the segregation. I said, that's not the point. Waste should be first segregated over here, and only the segregated waste should be sent out, because then you are able to create some livelihoods here. You don't have to create super livelihoods at one point. Of course, for certain categories of waste and certain kinds of waste, you need the MRF there, but whatever can be handled within the so we are trying to create a model with concentric circles, and we are trying to track waste and see, where does it go? Where does textile waste go? Where does C&D waste go? How can we handle e-waste? What can we do with biomedical waste? What can we do with diapers? These are all things that are still, questions to us. But the fact that we're asking these questions, I should talk about a colleague of mine, elected president in Udupi, Vanse. It's a small, tiny panchayat with only 750 households. So we traveled together to an SBCC conference in Morocco, and he was telling me, he presented over there to a room just like this. He presented over there and he said 750 houses, but they have been collecting wet and dry waste, because we ideally don't want to collect wet waste. We want wet waste to be handled as at the source itself. But where it's not possible, they have to collect it. So they have collected wet waste and segregated wet waste into 12 categories. They are segregating dry waste into 40 plus categories. They have been running this consistently. They now collect waste from 7 panchayats, and they have got a profit and revenues of they've got now in their bank, after paying the amounts, paying the costs and everything, they've got something like 12.5 lakhs in their bank account. So waste is actually working out for them, and they are now, even as I speak, there is one panchayat from North Karnataka, from Yadgir, which has gone on a study visit to Vanse. Point I'm saying is, 3 years ago, we were only sending people to Kerala to go and study solid waste management. Now we are sending people within our own state. Very soon we'll be sending, thank you. Very soon we'll be sending people within the district itself, because we will have lighthouses in every district where they will see that, and they will tell each other, because rather than me as an outsider sitting in Bangalore telling them, um, they will tell each other. People in Yadgir will tell each other that if we can do it, you can too. And that's why a Yadgir team has gone to Udupi to see that we are part of the same state. If Udupi can do it, why can't Yadgir? So this is something that we're trying to do. I feel that the global south should actually think a lot about how we can embed gender, embed inclusion, every kind of inclusion, across age, across disability, across categories, into, because it doesn't matter what are the kinds of livelihoods that we can think of for severely disabled people. Certainly, this can be like an occupational therapy, and it can be dignified work, it can be clean work, and it can be a way of being productively occupied as part of your own local community. It can also be care. While a person with severe intellectual disabilities is doing this work, they're also cared for by others. So these are the ways in which we have to think at different levels. We have to treat waste not only as wealth that is pretty cliched and everybody is recognizing, and that's why we are having now extractive models for taking waste and handling it. So many people are eager to handle it, but more than that, we have to treat this as an opportunity where we can create dignified livelihoods, and we can also create our own models. The global south, countries like India, Philippines, all of us, all of y'all experts who are here, we should document and share our own experiences so that we can actually come up with our own models. The machinery intensive, capital intensive model is not required here. We can come up with much more sustainable, dignified, decentralized models of handling our waste, which will actually enable more people to get livelihoods rather than less, and will actually build a greener planet and sustainable future for all of us. Thanks so much for.
That was inspiring, and I just can't let you go without telling you all. She has really created a movement of libraries in Karnataka, and in some of the places, it's in the bus stand and wherever they find. So huge reading culture she has created in Karnataka. I just asked her to talk about solid waste management. There are many other initiatives she has done, and she's been recognized across the country for her initiative in library. Thank you, ma'am. I know that you were not well and still you came up. And thank you very much for this.